In January 1994, the police received an unusual call. The caller said, "I did it again. What's this? Number 5, number 6. I forget it, but she's there." Before the operator could ask for the caller's identity or confirm the location, the line went dead. Minutes later, the caller called back and said, "You all better catch me before I kill again." California's State Route 60. It is a freight corridor connecting the port of Los Angeles with the Inland Empire, going through Pomona, Diamond Bar, Chino, the City of Industry, and Ontario. It is also the basic stuff that keeps Southern California's economy going, full of industrial zones, warehouses, cheap motels, and 24-hour convenience stores. During the day, truck drivers and forklift drivers come and go. In the late night, the road belongs to a different crowd, women hanging around on the street corners, many of them black, around 30 years old, with no fixed address, no steady income. On November 1st, 1993, behind an industrial building in Diamond Bar, someone found the body of a woman. She was 37 years old, Betty Sue Harris, with a minor criminal record and time served in prison. When she had cancer and realized that she was dying, she told the people around her that she wanted to be a good mother in her last days, but she was murdered by strangulation. 4 days later, on November 5th, 12 miles east in Chino, someone found the body of 31-year-old Roxanne Brooks Bates on the side of a country road. Roxanne was from Montclair, worked as a sex worker in the Los Angeles area, and had been arrested multiple times for prostitution. The coroner confirmed she had been strangled with a cord or cloth. On the 14th, in the City of Industry, in a parking lot at an industrial park, someone found the woman lying face down, her hands tied behind her back, duct tape over her mouth, 2 pieces of fabric wrapped around her neck. The victim was later identified as 36-year-old Helen Ruth Hill, who was on probation for a drug violation. Her roommate later told police that Helen was working several jobs at once and caring for her elderly mother. 2 days later, on the 16th, in Pomona, in a corner of an industrial area, someone found the body of 35-year-old Donna Goldsmith. Police found a piece of rope, shoelaces, and a sheet of black fabric in a dumpster next to the body, things later confirmed as the murder weapons. Donna had been a medical technician with a steady income, married, with 3 children. But later she got hooked on drugs and ruined her own life. Before she was killed, she had been arrested earlier that day for shoplifting at a store just a few blocks from where her body was dumped. 4 women dead in 16 days, all dumped near Route 60. But the Pomona Police, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and law enforcement agencies in every area along the Route 60 did not connect the cases. Because of jurisdictional boundaries, murder information could not be shared, so in the early stages, each victim was treated as a separate case. On December 30th, at Gymnasia Park in Pomona, someone found 34-year-old Cheryl Sayers dead, her neck, wrists, and ankles bound, cause of death strangulation. By then, the Pomona police realized something was wrong. In less than a month, they had found 2 women killed in the same way, so they reached out to neighboring police departments on their own, and discovered that the first victim had turned up in Diamond Bar on November 1st, followed by Chino, the City of Industry, and then Pomona. The backgrounds of these victims showed a clear pattern: all black women in their 30s, most with records of prostitution, drug violations, or minor offenses. They were all killed on the streets late at night. The killer's method was the same every time: strangulation. Some victims had their hands, feet, and mouths tied up. This kind of killing takes time, sustained force, and being up close. It means the killer was brutally cold, taking pleasure in having complete control over another person's life. So police across different areas began working together. They acknowledged there was a serial killer operating along Route 60, but they had no suspects. The 6th murder came on January 12, 1994, in San Antonio Park in Ontario. The victim was 33-year-old Deborah Denise Brown, a blue cloth wrapped around her neck, strangled to death. 10 weeks, 6 victims, then the murders stopped suddenly. Who was the killer? What was his motive? At the time, investigators had almost no leads and no answers at all. All they had were 6 victims, a similar way of killing, and a map of dump sites stretching along Route 60. The joint investigation continued for a while, but with no results, these cases eventually went cold. Almost 10 years later, by March 2003, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Cold Case Unit reopened the investigation. They entered biological evidence from Betty's case into California's DNA database, and it matched a prisoner named Jerome Hill. Hill was serving a 10-year sentence in state prison for armed robbery. Then, investigators pulled his file and found he had been locked up in early 1994. The timing lined up perfectly. The murders stopped exactly when he went in. And the DNA matched the biological evidence from the cases. These information shows that the man arrested for other crimes is the serial killer they have been looking for years. Usually, when investigators catch a serial killer, they dig up unsolved cases and try to link them, hoping to clear more victims. Hill was connected to 2 unsolved murders in the San Gabriel Valley. On February 11, 1986, 35-year-old Lorna Patricia Reed, a sex worker, was strangled to death. On January 26, 1987, someone found the naked body of Rhonda Jackson, also strangled. 8 murders spanning 8 years, from 1986 to 1994. Hill's original release date was February 2004, but before he could walk free, his crimes finally caught up with him. On October 23, 2006, Hill's trial opened at the Los Angeles County Superior Court, facing 6 counts of first-degree murder. On the first day, the prosecution showed crime scene photos of the victims on a large screen in the courtroom and played the recording of Hill's taunting call, "You all better catch me before I kill again." However, not long after he said those words, he was arrested for armed robbery. On November 17th, after about 15 minutes of discussion, the jury found Hill guilty on all 6 counts of first-degree murder. During the sentencing phase, Hill's attorney Jennifer Friedman said, "I acknowledge the gravity of these crimes. I acknowledge the number of these crimes." Then, facing the victims' families and the judge, Jennifer and Hill's mother, hoping for leniency, piecing together Hill's childhood. On March 30th, 1961, Hill was born in Los Angeles. He was the oldest child, with several younger brothers and sisters. Hill's father was unemployed and constantly beat his wife and children. On December 25, 1968, Hill's father pointed a .22 caliber rifle at his mother's face and pulled the trigger. The bullet went through her face and came out the other side, and 7-year-old Hill saw the whole thing. Although her injuries were severe, Hill's mother survived. She spent months in a hospital bed, but she was left with permanent facial damage and lasting psychological trauma. There was no income, no adult able to take care of these children. So, from the age of 10, Hill became the one responsible for holding the family together. Later, Hill enrolled at Pomona High School. During those years, people who knew him formed a remarkably consistent impression. He was a good kid. Teachers found him quiet. Classmates found him reliable. No one saw anything dangerous in him. Hill's mother did not defend her son's crimes. She did not say what he did was forgivable. She simply asked for life in prison instead of death. Then, the prosecutor said, "We may not ever understand why he did what he did, but we do know the result of what he did." The judge acknowledged the abuse, but said it wasn't enough to reduce the sentence, not enough to save Hill's life. And what Hill's mother did not mention was that in 1978, the year before he graduated high school, Hill got into drugs and was quickly hooked. To pay for drugs, he started with petty theft, and after a few times, he moved up to armed robbery. On January 23, 1979, 17-year-old Hill and his 18-year-old accomplice, Benson Myers, walked into a liquor store in Glendora with guns. During the robbery, Myers shot and killed Thomas Leavell and seriously injured Keith Hunt. Both were arrested shortly after. Myers got life without parole. Hill was handled separately as a juvenile and received a short sentence. Released in the mid-1980s, he moved to the San Gabriel Valley, picking up odd jobs, warehouse work, temporary loading and unloading. In the late 1980s, he was back in prison for theft. After that, it was his cycle of crime. Released from prison, worked odd jobs, committed crimes again, and got arrested. The murders of Lorna and Rhonda happened during this period. In February 1993, Hill was released again, returned to Pomona, and took a job as a forklift operator. Then, months later, he launched his killing spree, stalking and murdering those victims, even calling the police to taunt them. On January 2, 2007, the jury recommended the death penalty for Hill. On March 21st, the judge formally sentenced him to death by lethal injection. Before the sentence was read, the judge allowed the victims' families to speak. Donna's kid Tony said, "I can never forgive you and I will never forget." Tony's daughter Precious said, "I hate you. I hope you rot in hell. You look as if there's no hurt in you." When asked by the judge if he had anything to say, Hill replied, "No, Your Honor," and was sent to death row at San Quentin State Prison. Although the sentence was handed down, Hill's execution never actually happened. California's death penalty had effectively stopped after 2006. Inmates on death row waited year after year, most of them eventually dying of natural causes rather than being executed. Hill was no exception. After more than a decade on death row, his health got worse. He was transferred to the California Healthcare Facility in Stockton. May 15, 2009, Hill confessed to the murders of Lorna and Rhonda, bringing his confirmed victim count to 8. This man, known as the 60 Freeway Killer, never publicly said another word after being identified. No apology, no explanation, no letters to the victims' families. The only complete statement he ever left this world was that, "You all better catch me before I kill again."